You ready? You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, theys and gays. This is the Real Pineapple. This is your humble host, Hunter, here. I hope you're well. I hope you're safe. I'm real excited about my interview today. You know my guest from Stoker Kills, Love Daniel, and then from her new film, which she starred in, directed, wrote. Oh my God, what else? What can't she do? So I got Sara Friedman here. Sarah, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Thank
I'm
you for
really well. Yeah, thank you so much for making the time. So I'm gonna just kind of jump in here right out the gate. Talk to me about the process of writing this movie and then deciding to direct it. What because I always have this kind of like fear when I hear that someone's doing multiple things because it's like, okay, at some point in theory you could get pulled in one direction and maybe your or your quality of work will lessen from one of the other jobs that you have. And yet I think you nail all three things here, especially the writing. So yeah, can you talk to me about that decision? Was it early on that you said I have to star in this and I need to direct this as well?
Yeah, I actually I started out as an actor, but I also studied I did theater directing in college. So acting and directing are both kind of my real loves. And I had, the idea for this concept actually as a short film in 2015. I thought that I wanted to try directing some film. So I was like, I'll just write this little thing and I'll just make it. And I discovered that I loved film so much. And after that, I went on to write, direct, and star in a lot of different short films. So I really spent several years practicing that muscle of kind of doing them all at once. And then when it was time, when I knew I was ready for my first feature, this felt like revisiting the characters I had done in this short. I really knew I wanted to do not only for the message, but like you said, this role is has been with me for so long that I knew that the acting wouldn't pull me too far away from really focusing on the directing. It wasn't a
Fair.
character that I knew the character like the back of my hand years before we even started shooting.
So when you say that in terms of like knowing the character beforehand, what was the biggest challenge from expanding it from a short to a feature?
For me, I think the biggest challenge in terms of the writing, just of the story, was just really expanding the scope of the world while remaining true to the sort of core between these two main characters. So it was a little complicated. At first, I sort of overwrote it. I added too many new characters. I added, there was a B, and a C plot that got cut. So it just was figuring out exactly. It was also the first feature I directed. So it was just figuring out exactly how much to expand the world. And I'm really happy with where we ended up, but it took a lot of work in the edit to go, you know what? I actually didn't need those three scenes. Let's kill them.
What was the plot that like hurt you the most to cut, like for the flow of the movie?
Yeah, there was a whole really fun subplot with a lot of wonderful acting in it, and I'm bummed it got cut, but it just messed with the pacing too much.
Fair.
It was a big Dusty, the male lead. There was there's a whole storyline about the bullying that he's faced from his stepbrother, and that was even more expanded into this whole other plot of a little underage drinking scheme that was going on at the park. And it was a really fun, cute plot. And it eventually got cut because it was taking away from the connection between Nora and Dusty, which is really the crux of the whole film.
Fair. So one thing I will say about your acting, that I really enjoyed is that you're very expressive in terms of like your facial expressions. And so like whenever Nora's annoyed, like I felt that. And I acting wise too, your comedic timing is is incredibly spot on, and not just in a way, not in saying the lines, but how you deliver them. What do you come from like an improv background as well? Because as I was watching the film, I was like, I feel like there are definitely moments in here that aren't script ready, that aren't in the script, but that you kind of just kind of threw in
Yeah.
there.
Well, one thing, I have, done some improv. I've taken improv classes. I love comedy. But that's not my background. I think those moments really come especially from my co-star, Dave Register, who plays Dusty. He and I have known each other since middle school.
Oh
Uh,
wow,
and
okay.
we went to the same middle school, high school, everything.
Oh,
So
that's a trip. Okay.
he and I have a real ease when we're acting together. I also, as a director, I always encourage improv from any of my actors. I love it. I think that actors typically know the characters better than you do, so why not let them, have at it if we have time. On indie movies, you don't always have time. But Dave and I had also been these characters in a short film in 2015. And so much of that short came from just playing around and seeing what happened. So a lot of that sort of kind of freewheeling, just permission to try something comes from that comfort with each other.
In terms, since you brought it up, saying that, like you encourage improv if you have the time, what was the shooting schedule like for this?
We shot this movie in 15 days.
Good grief. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
like were you doing like two takes maybe? Or
Sometimes, honestly, some scenes, yes. And some scenes when I could do more. I was so fortunate to have such talented actors that it was very rare that I left a scene going, oh, I wish we could have gone again. And my producer and AD and everyone, they did want more than anything for us to get what we needed. Um, One thing that I actually love about directing and acting at the same time that I think goes quicker is I can just direct myself in the middle of the take. I don't have to cut. I don't have to,
mm.
I don't have to talk to an actor to give a note. Everyone makes fun of me because we'll be doing a take. I'll say a line and then I'll go, oh, wait, I hated that. And then I'll just say it. Uh, and it actually, oddly enough, saves a little bit of time. And last year I was at a screening of Maestro with a Q&A with Bradley Cooper after, and he said that he does the exact same thing. He was, in his full prosthetics playing Leonard Bernstein, going, "Oh, wait, no, hang on," just directing himself in the middle of a take. So that's a little trick as a time saver.
What was the scene that what was the scene that you had the hardest time shooting as far as the takes? What was the one that took the most effort to shoot?
Yeah, the I would say probably, well, two come to mind really quickly. There's a nighttime beach scene that's
Hmm.
the first sort of intimate moment between the main characters, and it turns from a love scene into a fight. They're, angry with each other, and little fun behind the scenes fact, our generator went down.
Oh
So
shit.
sudden, it's like our DP's trying to figure out how to light it with like battery powered. So
Oh
things like
no.
this, things like this just happen and you have to roll with it. And that already was going to be a very difficult scene emotionally. Also, just the physical logistics, of course, of a closed set, of being on a beach at night. So, but I honestly, I'm really, really happy with what we got out of it. I think that there's a real emotional honesty um, in the scene, and it works. So you just have to kind of roll with the punches.
That scene in particular, yeah, the 180 that you both have to pull from that, I thought was so well done. But the way that you kind of ramp up to that 180,
Thank
that
you.
was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I thought you
Thank
nailed
you.
that.
My
I
DP sat there with her eyes closed because she would not have lit it the way that she did. I'm like, come on, it's great. No one,
I
no one.
I want to talk about the scenes that you have with your therapist.
Mhm.
Because I really felt like those were I know you said that you encourage improv. Those were the ones that I almost felt like the dialogue felt the most improv-ish, the way that you're kind of like volleying off each other. I really love those sequences. Talk to me about filming those, because I think what I love about Nora is that she's very witty, and I adore witty. But there are these points with her where I'm just like, if you would all stop being such assholes to her, like she could catch a fucking break. And I felt like I was frustrated watching this. I was just like, God damn it. And my partner was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I'm watching this scene and I'm so frustrated for her. Um, yeah, can you talk to me kind of a little bit about that aspect, Nora?
Yeah, the therapy scenes, I love those scenes. The actress who plays the therapist, Dipti, is wonderful. And the interesting thing about those is I find that a lot of people, if you can't tell, I've been in a lot of therapy. I find that a lot of people who maybe haven't, sometimes in test screenings, people were like, isn't the therapist being a little harsh? And it's like, you don't pay a therapist to tell you what you want to hear,
Yeah, you're not paying a
right?
friend. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is someone, and also her therapy is sort of court mandated. So there's a real specific kind of relationship happening there. And one thing I love about Dipti's performance is she brings in so much of how this therapist really likes Nora. She does think she's really witty and really funny. And she brings in that humanity. Nora will sort of do a quip and she'll just kind of roll her eyes, but you're like, oh, you like her. And so their relationship, the way it sort of builds, was something I really wanted to focus on. And my cinematographer and I did a really, even just the way we shoot them, starting very sort of stagnant and separated and moving in so they're sort of feel closer to each other. It was really important to me because that's a really serious relationship that you have with someone, with your therapist. And then when she's disappointed in her, it's not disappointment that she did the things she did, it's disappointment that she didn't come and talk to her first. So
Which is so much worse when people
it's so
phrase
much
it like
worse.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. It's like, wait, I thought, you let someone down who actually cares about you. So I've had some incredible therapists in my life who I
same.
feel, there's this sort of misconception that a therapist has to be like this total robot. And it's like, no, they're people who have actual feelings about their clients. So I had a lot of fun with those.
In terms of Nora's parents, I found that relationship so fascinating because they're just like not to get too spoilery, but her mom just I've grown up with people like that, and I know how it like. Oh my God, I like that hit close to home in a way that I was like, oh man, I feel this so much. I have friends that have parents like that, and it's like so maddening because you can see them just being eroded down and like their self-worth being just nothing because of that. I feel like that's the hardest relationship to write because you almost don't want to make it like you don't want to make it like super like cartoonish like mustache twirling, but you want to root it in reality. And I think that's there was one moment in particular where Nora goes, yeah, like my day was great, thanks. And her mom just walks by and I remember going, oh my God, I've seen that so much. Like, was that the hardest relationship to write, like the ones with the parents?
It's interesting because so that could not be further from my relationship with my mom. My mom's like my best friend.
Yes,
So
same mom, I love you.
yeah,
This
yeah,
before
mom,
anyone.
we love you. You're great.
Yeah.
But especially sort of like the kind of like New England waspy culture, there are a lot of people who are just taught not to talk about their feelings. And I actually approached the mom from a place of empathy as a writer. I was like, she is not trying to be a bad mom. She's not trying to be difficult or self-centered. She's just built this shell around herself because she never got the help that she needed. So I wanted to explore her as sort of like what could happen to Nora, right? If Nora doesn't
Mm,
get help now. Um,
okay.
and I think through that and through the conversation Nora ends up having with her father, she's able to feel empathy for her mother for the first time. And it's just another sort of example of you never know what somebody's going through, right? It doesn't
True.
excuse her from being pretty crappy to her daughter, but there's a reason, there's something there, and she's trying with the very limited tools that she has.
I want to talk about that dinner scene because
It's a fun one.
Yeah, so like there's this point, and I don't want to spoil it for people, where Nora just like pops off in a way that I was like, I'm kind of waiting for this because at some point like the gears just can get turned too tight. But when she does, I went, oh, she's 1,000% justified. There's one dude in the scene I won't spoil, but the moment he went in the kitchen, I just started going, no, 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 and just because I knew it's like, oh God. Um that scene must have been fun to act because like that's probably the most that you just kind of like
It was a
lose
great
it.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. The actor who plays that man, Whip Hubley, is wonderful. And he kept going, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This is so creepy." And I was like, "You're doing great." Uh, doing great. He apologized to my mom the first time you met her. But
Damn.
the thing is, I love that you really felt that because a very interesting thing is, in test screenings and whatnot, there were a few men who were like, oh, that's awful. But is that enough to make her totally lose her mind?
Oh no.
And
No, no.
three or four people, like, is that enough motivation does that earn this
Very much. Yeah, his
reaction?
wife's in the next room. It
And I'm
absolutely
like,
is.
oh, you must have had such a nice life. Whereas all
Mm.
the women are like, yes.
But then there's something that the last thing that North says, that alone would
Yeah.
warrant the.
So,
That's
yeah.
insane that you had people say that. That.
Funny, and it was just, it was people who were really trying to give good feedback. I just want to make sure this is earned, and I'm like, talk to one woman.
That breaks
It's
my
earned.
heart because
Yeah. It was really, I was like, oh my God, yeah, we have very different lived experiences.
the one line I will spoil for people is that he goes, "Oh, she cooks too," and just like,
So gross.
like,
Yeah.
I. That's one of those lines that, as you wrote, I'm sure you're like, "Oh, that's good," but also like, ick at the same
Yeah.
time.
Writing that was really fun because it was funny how those gross lines were just pouring out of me. I was like, I wrote that dinner scene so fast. Because
Okay.
it just was like, it just was coming out and it was like, oh, I love this.
Yeah, that scene is last question I have for you. This felt very personal, like obviously doing the short film and everything, but how much how do I want to put this? How much of yourself do you put into something like this given the subject matter versus
Yeah,
serving your characters? Like how do you find that balance?
absolutely. And much like I said that the mother is sort of Nora if she never got help, Nora is like a version of me if I never got help, right? Like
Mm,
there's parts of me in everything I write. That's just I think what it is to be a writer. There's parts of me in Dusty. There's parts of me in each of the parents, or parts of my parents, or all of my friends. So it's one reason that I knew that this was a good, feature for me to direct as my first feature and star in is that I knew I can access Nora very easily. But because our journeys are different enough, it's not overwhelming, right? It's
yeah.
not, I can put myself in her shoes and I've had very similar life experiences, but I have written enough of a buffer that it's not like reliving
Okay.
traumas.
Okay, good.
Uh, yeah, exactly. I never um I had an acting teacher who just really stressed the importance to us of there's no need to sort of break yourself open with your traumas to be a good actor. It's just you don't need to do that. And so I like to have a safe environment for everybody, a fun environment, and even when dealing with really serious subject matters. I do have anxiety and OCD and all of those things. So, but they manifest differently enough that it wasn't like walking on set and reliving the worst day of my life.
Good. Um, okay, I lied. I have one more question. Because this is such a like dramedy, I'd say. Subject wise moving forward, like are there genre like do you want to go into like do you want to do a horror flick? Do you want to do an action film? Like what do you kind of want to do moving forward? Like
It's funny. So right now I've got two features in development. One is a darker comedy, and the other is a folk horror. But
nice. Okay.
I know I'm all over the place. My real dream, sci-fi and fantasy. Those are my genres. That's my.
Okay.
I am a big nerd. Put me in a Star Trek world. Like that's.
Yes, let's
I'm just
go.
a huge Trekkie. Like just
Are you
that's like.
really? Oh, see, I'll say I knew you were cool. Okay.
I am. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
No, Trek is cool. Go, don't, no, no,
It-
no, no, none of this.
Yeah.
Like,
But no, I would do absolutely, I just love movies. I love TV. I love stories. Um, I love all genres, and I'm excited to try to not pigeonhole myself into sort of quirky comedy. So my next thing is already very different.
hell yeah. Paramount, give her money. Let her write a Star Trek script. Come on.
I'm available.
I will say in closing, Sarah, there is a scene that takes place in the kitchen, and um it was enough to make me cry. Like I actually had to pause the movie, but it was so nice to have that scene because it's nice to hear that, sometimes things are rough, but it's okay. It's okay that things are rough. And I appreciate you so much for being able to not just write that scene, but to write what I thought was such an enjoyable film. So I thank you so much for putting yourself out there, for revisiting Nora. And I thought you did an incredible job with this film. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. This was
So much.
such a good way to go into my weekend. But before I let you go, if you wouldn't mind telling people where they can see the film and then where they can find you on socials.
Absolutely. So the movie is called Heightened, and it is available on Apple TV, Prime, as well as all of your sort of cable and digital VOD. So, Spectrum, all of that. But Apple TV and Prime are the easiest places to find it. And my name is Sara Friedman. My name, you can just search that. But also, all of my social media is Sarah Mintaha, Mintaha. It's my middle name.
Perfect. Sarah, again, thank you so much for taking the time. I can't wait to see, like, I am gonna be checking out those horror flicks, like whatever you put out moving forward. But thanks again for taking the time, and you have a good rest of your day, all right?
Thanks, you too.
And you take care.
Bye.